Okay, so here we are. We're going to pick up where we left off last, I don't know, maybe, actually maybe a few weeks ago when I showed you guys how to install Linux. Now we're going to go and do the download and install of the SRCDS server and the CSGO server specifically. All right, so here we go. Let me log in. All right, again, this is the interface of a fresh, out-of-the-box GNOME Ubuntu install desktop. This little bar up here is actually just because, again, I'm running from within a virtual machine. It does come with all kinds of programs that you might expect in any other operating system: file browser, chat, email, and web browser. But again, you will be living out of the terminal by default. That terminal is not in there. I have added it. So what I will do, if you're just right here, you should go up to the search bar, type in terminal, grab it. You can drag it over here to your, right click and add to your favorites, or you can drag it over to your favorites. Let's go ahead and launch. Okay, so here is the terminal. And this is, for all intents and purposes, your new home. Let's go ahead and make this a little bigger and easier to read for you. Okay, there we go. So now here we are in our terminal, your new home for managing your file or your Counter-Strike Go server. Okay, so first things first. A lot of people feel like they have to do every install and run everything as a root user. You do not need to do that. You will need root level access in general because we're going to have to install some dependencies if they're not already on your particular distribution. This is basically just so that we can compile and run the game or the game server itself, or at least SRCDS manages all that. You don't do any of that stuff manually, but nevertheless the dependencies need to be there. So before we go any further, from whatever your administrator account is, you can do sudo apt-get. Actually, let me take a step back. Depending on whether you are in Red Hat or Debian distribution, the dependencies have different names and the package management systems are different. Package management system being the thing by which you will acquire the dependency package. So here's the command for Ubuntu and other Debian-based operating distributions, which I personally am using. Here's the command for Red Hat and CentOS, which is another very popular one. And next is for the 64-bit version of Red Hat CentOS. Okay, so again, this is going to be installed on a 64-bit version of Ubuntu. So we're going to use this. Now, because we're not running as root user at the moment, we have to do sudo in front. And again, this is why you need to be running from an administrator account, because if you are not, you do not have sudo access or sudo privileges. So we'll sudo apt-get install these dependencies. Just type in the wrong password. Okay. So I already have them installed, but this is what you would have needed to do to get them installed if you didn't. So the dependencies there now, you can worry about, who you are logged in as and all of that stuff. So by default on this virtual machine, if I type in who am I, it shows that I'm username Steam already. That's my administrator user. That's everything. But for a lot of people, they maybe under the username John or Jim or whatever, just some other random username. I would recommend not installing SRCDS and the CSGO server as a root user. In fact, Steam recommends, and I recommend, making your own username Steam if you don't have one already. Now when you do that through the command line, there's two ways you can go about it. You can either add user, or you can user add. Okay, now what's the difference here? So one of them is a friendly front-end interface that allows you to create a home directory and do all these things. One of them is not. If you forget which is which, then you can very easily look at the Linux man pages. So you type in man, add user, and what does this say? Add user, add group. They add users and groups to the system according to command line options and configuration information. They are friendlier front ends to low-level tools like user add. So user add is the low-level tool, and add user is the friendlier front end. So if I were to do the opposite, man, user add is low-level utility for adding users. On Debian, administrators should usually use add user instead. So it's easy for us to figure out which one we want, and in this case, we want to do the one that is less difficult. Again, add user, the friendlier front end. So if you don't have add user already, you can just type in add user, and you have to do it from from an administrator or root level user to begin with, but that would be the way to do that. Okay, now let's assume you have done that and you actually have your username Steam installed. You're going to want to switch user to Steam. I'm already there, so it's not going to do anything for me. But that's how you would switch users, SU, and then the name of the user you want to switch to. Okay, now you're there. The other option is to simply log out and log back in, which is right up here in the corner. Log out and log back in is the right person. Okay, I basically had logged in twice, so I exited out of one of them. But again, switch user will allow you to do it with the command line, or you can log out and log back in. So at this point, you've done a few things. You have installed the dependencies, which was, if you look at our history, it was this one right here, sudo apt-get install lib32 gcc1. That allowed you to provide all the dependencies to the 64-bit version of srcds to allow it to run all these older 32-bit dependencies, because apparently the program has a lot of 32-bit dependencies, and you have added a user and switched to that user. Okay, so now that we've done that, what you're going to do is get to your home directory. By default, when you open a terminal, you're going to end up at your home directory, but if you forget how to get there, it's fairly easy to get to do. So by default, most home directories are going to be in /home. Because my username is Steam, this would be my home directory. And if I do pwd, print working directory, I'm at home Steam. So you can either change directory to home Steam, or you can do change directory into the home variable, which expands into just this. That takes the same place, again, right there, or cd tilde, that again takes us home. So if I were at a different directory, let's say I was at desktop, and so home Steam desktop, I can get to where I want by typing cd home. Now if I print working directory, I'm right where I want to be. Okay, just in case you're wondering, you can clear the screen by hitting Control+L or typing in clear. Okay, so now that that is done, you're going to want to do one of two things. You're going to want to make, or you'll want to do one thing first anyway. You're going to want to make a folder where you can install all of your Steam files, and to do that we're going to use the program makedir. Now because I've actually done this once before, I'm going to actually remove the existing Steam CMD folder that I have made earlier. Okay, so if I look, there's no Steam CMD. I'm starting over from scratch. So I'm going to makedir Steam CMD. Now we are here where we want to be. Print working directory.